So I think the most interesting thing in this series is how much are the Lakers going to adjust to what Houston is doing? Because the Lakers, they like to run the two bigs, even as it's hurt their offense throughout the season. And what's going to happen? Can JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard defend with Houston's spacing and their shooting and all that? I mean, if we're thinking that the Lakers are going to start with McGee and AD as the two bigs, are you going to stick JaVale on Russell Westbrook and do what the Jazz would do with Gobert? If you're not going to do that, then you're asking McGee or Dwight to defend a shooter off the ball, and then Houston can get that guy involved, and I just don't totally know where Dwight and JaVale fall in this series. I mean, we can argue that on the other end, you could kill the Rockets with offensive rebounds and all that stuff. I get that, but if you're just giving Houston a guy who they can constantly go at, then I think it's going to be a little tougher. Now, OKC had Steven Adams out there for that whole series, and we can argue whether that was a good move or not, but that series, of course, was very close in the end, so you could argue that having Steven Adams on the floor didn't kill the Thunder like that. I think if you dove into the nitty-gritty and play-by-play, I think there were definitely some stretches where Houston benefited from him, whether it was a guy they could leave open or what have you. I think they definitely found some ways to go at Adams a bit and force him to play defense on the perimeter. And I just want to see what's going to happen with JaVale and Dwight in that situation. I mean, who do you put him on? Like I already mentioned, the idea of when one of them's in the game, you put him on Westbrook and you sag off of him and you dare him to take jump shots. That's cool. It's not as good in the full court, in transition and stuff like that. I feel like just having one guy who can't keep up with everybody else could be a big problem for the Lakers. And I don't know if the size advantage is going to make up for all that type of stuff. Now, of course, they could just play AD at center with LeBron and three perimeter players, which is what I've wanted them to do more. Everyone's wanted them to do more. So maybe this series will basically force them to do it. I don't know. But I think that's the first thing to make note of, is just how much are the Lakers going to adjust to the Rockets, and how much is Vogel just going to be like, no, we are at our best when we're big, which again, the advanced stats would suggest that they're not at their best when JaVale McGee plays with Anthony Davis. Granted, they made it work against the Blazers, and for the regular season overall, AD and JaVale together is still pretty positive, but the last chunk of the regular season, their offense just really got bad with those two, and I fear that could pop up again against this Rockets team. Unless we just think that JaVale is going to be that good around the basket, but I'm like, does anybody expect JaVale to score more than 6 points a game in this series? I mean, Steven Adams for the series against the Rockets averaged, 10 points? I mean, he had 17 in game one, and after that it was, the most he scored after that was 12. So just picturing that guy potentially hurting the Lakers' spacing while Houston can go at him versus just putting a guy who can space the floor out there and hang around against the Rockets thing a little bit more. There you go. Now, I guess if you want to be optimistic about the two bigs, you could say that it gives them extra rim protection, which works against Harden and Westbrook. I'll give you that, but it's just, are those two going to be able to do that while not leaving shooters wide open? And again, are they not going to kill the spacing for the Lakers on the other end? And a lot of the stuff I'm saying about JaVale, I would say about Dwight as well. The one thing I will give Dwight is I would give him a little bit more of a chance to hang around defensively against Houston if he's not the lone big man. So, for what that's worth. Anyway, next thing to think about is, can the Lakers defend James Harden? Well, they don't really have a Lou Dort guy. But, Danny Green, good fundamental defender. He's dealt with Harden before. Granted, Danny Green's not as good as he used to be, but he still knows how to play defense, even if he's not as quick to the spot or whatever. Kuzma has had stretches of being very good defensively, and you'd think his frame could be equipped to defend Harden. We'll get to Westbrook eventually, but there's that. LeBron can defend Harden if he put all of his energy there, but he's not going to do that. You need him on the other side of the floor, but I think at times we could see LeBron defending Harden. Fourth quarters, big possessions, stuff like that. KCP, he might be athletic enough to move with Harden, but I don't know if he's going to be strong enough or fundamentally good enough to not foul him and stuff like that. Caruso might be a little too small. Not in terms of height, but in terms of weight. So, yeah, I don't know if there's an obvious guy. I mean, could Dion do it? I mean, funny enough, Dion might actually be big enough to do it, but, putting Dion out there is a bit of a whirlwind, as we all know. There is one other idea that I thought of, which I don't know if we're really going to see this, but could you try putting Anthony Davis on James Harden? Is that a possibility? Maybe. They don't have another big guy to kill you for AD defending on the perimeter, I'm just saying. I suppose it's possible. I mean, AD is certainly going to be switching all around, and that's partly why I think the Lakers are looking good in this series, because Anthony Davis is one big guy who actually can kill the Rockets for going small, and he can stick with them on the other end of the floor. So if AD is... I mean, I don't even really know where you put him on defense right now. Like, do you put him on Westbrook and do that whole spiel? I think you could have some success with that. Do you just stick him on a shooter? I don't know if that's the best thing, because then you're losing a lot of his rim protection unless you're just risking a guy being open. So I don't know. There's definitely some options there, and AD is versatile enough to where you can kind of do anything with him. But for him to be the most impactful, he may just have to have possessions on Harden and Westbrook. Besides all that, I believe I said this already, you got to be able to shrink the floor while getting out to the shooters. And I think OKC did a pretty okay job of that as the series went along, and that just requires communication and, you just committed to the ball handler, so now I got to go to the open shooter, and just kind of being on a string. And I mean, the Lakers' defense was good enough this season to where I think they can do it. I think we could see them double-team Harden some. OKC eventually did it in Game 7. I don't remember if they did it outside of Game 7, but perhaps we could see the Lakers go to that a little bit more often. I think the key to defending Houston is basically to just make them as uncomfortable as possible. Because if you're just allowing Harden and them to do what they want to do and keep the floor spaced out, then you're going to have a tough time. But I think the Lakers, especially with Anthony Davis, and mainly just because of Anthony Davis, I feel like they're always going to have a chance there, right? Between his rim protection and if he's involved in some sort of a perimeter thing with Harden or Westbrook, I think he can hang around there, and that's it's probably going to be the key, I guess, to think about how the Rockets are going to defend the Lakers. I mean, they're going to switch a lot. They're going to swarm ball handlers. As far as guys that LeBron can attack, LeBron loves to do his hunting mismatches thing. In the starting lineup, I mean, I think we could see them forcing Harden to play a lot of defense. And, to give Harden credit, he has been better defensively. Can Daniel House defend LeBron? I don't really think so. Covington may be able to match up physically with him. Covington was getting burned one-on-one against CP, but, LeBron's not as shifty as Chris Paul. He's more just straight line drive type of dude. Covington might be a little bit more equipped for that sort of thing. I imagine LeBron isn't going to go at PJ Tucker all the time, although PJ Tucker might start on LeBron, but you imagine LeBron will do what he can to get switched off of Tucker. Even then, LeBron's probably just going to have to go at him sometimes, and we assume he would do that. The other thing about this, though, is we're going to need the Lakers to run more LeBron-Anthony Davis pick and roll, ideally with 3 shooters around it. Because the thing is, if they go back to that 2 big man thing, their offense gets so muddled and awkward, and it's like, are they running a pick and roll? They're kind of passing the ball around the perimeter. There's a handoff play that led to nothing, and it all results in the fact that there's just a guy that's just killing the spacing, you know what I mean? It makes Anthony Davis post-ups tougher. It makes anything LeBron wants to do tougher. It clogs up the driving lanes, So, again, what are the Lakers going to do? Now, I guess the one thing an extra big man does give you is an extra screen setter. And maybe you could get really creative with that stuff. But I'm still concerned. if they just roll with the two bigs all the time. I guess we think about how can the Rockets defend Anthony Davis. I mean, in theory, they can't. Sure, Covington is probably their best bet. Him and PJ Tucker, maybe Jeff Green. But, Anthony Davis, he should play really, really well in this series. I think the goal for him is 30-something points a game, and I think that's pretty attainable. I mean, Houston has proven that they're not just little pipsqueaks out there defending around the basket, but even so, Anthony Davis should be great. Like, he should be great on the post-ups. He should have a pretty big advantage just on the mid-range jumpers he likes to attempt. But even so, I think Houston's going to bring extra guys at him, and they're going to force him to make some passes, and Anthony Davis's passing has been good, no doubt. 3 assists a game this year, not as much because of LeBron, but he had basically 4 assists a game last year for the Pelicans, and we'll just see. I mean, we'll see if he can dribble out of traffic. We'll see if he can just make a play to the open guy, or at least just keep the ball moving. Is Houston going to be able to close out on shooters off of LeBron stuff and AD stuff, like post-ups I just mentioned? My honest answer is I don't know. I mean, the Rockets at times look great defensively against OKC. Other times it'd be bad transition defense or whatever else. Is Eric Gordon the random X factor of this thing? Because he had some games against the Thunder where he was the other dude who could create his own shot a bit and be a threat from outside. When he had 21 on 5 for 9 shooting from 3 in Game 7 against the Thunder, that's a legit Game 7. I would imagine so. I think for the Lakers, I think you're going to be forced to play a little bit more conventional defense on Gordon. I don't think there's another guy that you can load up on with Westbrook and Harden already here. And for that, I would say hopefully you can just defend him with whoever in this series. Maybe you just put Danny Green on Gordon and say, Danny, your job is to not let that guy beat us. Although even then, I think there's going to be enough switching in this series to where it's never really going to be like a specific defensive matchups like that. Have I really talked about Westbrook that much? I think I talked about him a little bit on defense. So with Westbrook, I mean, again, I don't know what Anthony Davis is. I don't know who he's going to defend. I don't even know if the Lakers are going to have 1 or 2 big guys out there. But I don't think it's ridiculous to think that Anthony Davis could be matched up on Westbrook in some half-court sets. Because if it's not that, then he's on a shooter who, now Anthony Davis is standing in the corner and he's basically just another guy. So if AD was on Westbrook, then could Russ get by him? To be honest, I don't know. AD's a hell of a defender who can switch on the guys. Now, if the Lakers put whoever on Westbrook, Danny Green, KCP, take your pick of the Lakers perimeter defenders, then I think Russ can definitely have some success. I think, I called Gordon the wild card. Maybe Westbrook is the wild card because, if he's making his pull-up mid-rangers, if you can't stay in front of him, then it gets very tough, which is super obvious, I understand. But when you have to put so much of the game plan towards slowing down Harden and then Westbrook is a problem, it becomes a thing. And then it kind of turns into a bit more of like a either dare Westbrook to shoot and hope he misses sort of thing, or it's more of like a you just got to play really good individual defense. Now, I think we would all agree Westbrook, he didn't look right against the Thunder. Whether that's because he's still feeling it in the quad or whatever it may be. He did have 20 in Game 7. I don't think he was really great. I don't think he just didn't look 100%. I don't know what else to say. Might have a little bit of stamina thing going on. I don't know. But if Westbrook is going to be 27 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists, Westbrook, no one can stay in front of him. He's making his 4 mid-range pull-ups a game. He does seem to be getting kind of comfortable with that bank shot. Then I think the Lakers are definitely in for some trouble. I guess another thing is, this is a super obvious one, so why did it take me 15 minutes? I don't know. The three-point shooting. Shots got to go in. The Rockets are going to get open looks, the Lakers are going to get open looks, and what's going to happen there? I don't know. Gordon and Covington went nuts in Game 7. Jeff Green and Austin Rivers have had their moments, especially Jeff Green. On the Lakers' end, they've struggled with making open threes at times. And that's really tough, Because it's like, for certain three-pointers, I can understand why you would want to stop them. Like Harden taking another step back in a Game 7 when he's clearly tired as hell and he's short-arming every three. I can understand why you don't want him to take more of those. But when LeBron or AD are just doing their thing and there's an open guy and it's just a catch-and-shoot wide-open three, it's like, you got to make those. So Danny Green, KCP, Caruso, Kuzma, Dion if he plays, JR if he plays, Morris. Is Rondo going to play? I don't totally know. Just got to make some of those shots. See if they can do it. I think the Rockets will dare LeBron to take some jumpers. They'll dare AD to take jumpers too. I mean, there's not a lot else you can do with those two. Besides hoping that Vogel puts another big man on the floor. Then half the job is done for you. I guess the last thing to think about, it will be James Harden again. So Harden, I know he made some great defensive plays in Game 7. Overall, he wasn't good, A lot of step-back threes when he wasn't feeling it. And again, usually I'm on the side of, even if the threes aren't going in, you keep taking them. But in the sense of step-backs, it's a little different. I'm more talking about like the wide-open catch-and-shoots. So anyway, not settling as much, but also just kind of showing up for the moment. And this is going to be a bit Skip Bayless-y, but I have no other way to word this. Like, there are times in huge games like that Game 7 where Harden either looks kind of, I don't want to say checked out, but it's just like suddenly the possession after possession, ISOs, dribble moves, no one can defend me. It kind of shifts into more of this like conservative guy who doesn't attack every single possession. It's like, wait, what is happening right now? So, don't do that is my thing for Harden there. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to go Lakers. I think AD is the big thing here. I think with Anthony Davis, he might be the only big in the NBA who can defend Houston kind of any way he needs to, whether it's on the perimeter, switched onto a shooter, and they start trying to run plays to go at him. He can stick to all that stuff. I think he can defend Westbrook and Harden one-on-one at times. He can definitely protect the rim, and then he can kill him on the other end for being a little smaller than him. So that, to me, is the heart of the series. The way the Lakers screw that up is they miss open threes, and they play another big for too many minutes. But this should be good. Should be a good series. LeBron's also going to have to not mess around. He was messing around in the bubble, like the seeding games, and he was messing around in Game 1 against the Blazers. But then he just started driving to the basket every time. And it's like, oh, there's LeBron again. So to keep doing that. One little thing I will say, which it's 18 minutes in. No one's seeing this part now. But it's LeBron's like super hesitant to take pull-up mid-rangers, which is great because, I mean, it's the least efficient shot, especially for him. But I feel like you can kind of bait him into looking weird on pick and rolls as a result. Like you drop on him and he doesn't want to take it. So I don't know what all that means. But again, there's no rim protector out there for Houston like that. So anyway, yeah, I'll take the Lakers.